Welcome back. Still on to Daybreak Africa. And yes, we want to discuss this topic. Last week, we started with the state of the nation and we looked at, challenges and way forward. That's challenges that is currently happening now and way forward. Today, we want to look at the rule of law. And we have in the studio a lawyer who is seasoned in the area of, going through such cases, maybe political case or whatever, all those kind of cases, and knows a lot about what is happening. And we want to actually know why our laws are like this. So we have in the studio, Okenna and Nnebedum, you're welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
So first of all, let us look at the intricacies of Emefiele's arrest. What happened during, I just want us to look at the judicial system and how things has, I would say, fallen apart. Like, Chinua Achebe wrote in the Things Fall Apart, that things seems to be falling apart, where you see two security operatives. I mean, security operatives from two different agencies, the DSS and also the correctional personnel, fighting over who will keep in custody the man who the court has granted bail to pay bail and leave. I mean, what exactly is happening? Why should, number one, agencies flout the issue, the judgments of the case, of the law, and also why law enforcement agents now fight over a criminal or supposed to be a criminal, fight over keeping him. Why all that?
Thank you, Mr. George. This question is very fundamental, and it mirrors the decay in our society. It mirrors the elements of a failed state or a failing state. It mirrors the incompetence and the ineptitude and the corruption in high places in government in Nigeria. I want to disagree with you to an extent. It is not only in the judiciary. There are three arms of government, which is part of the theory formulated by A.V. Dicey, who you can say to be the father of modern theory of rule of law. Because the pillars of rule of law stands on certain principles. Number one, the supremacy of the law, the independence of the judiciary, or the recognition of the three arms of government, and the fact that one of them definitely, totally, and independent, not just by word of mouth, but by the certainty of the provision in the Constitution or the laws of the land, whether it is written laws or written, because of course, Nigeria operates a written, it's a constitutional democracy. Britain operates a non-written constitution, but they still know the certainty of their laws, because sometimes the next question will be what is happening to our law, like you asked.
Yes.
It's not that our laws are not there. It's not that they are not written. It's not that they are not known. But it is because some people who don't have reason to be within the corridors of power have found themselves there. And they have institutionalized themselves to an extent, like I told you, it is becoming a failing state. Because every element of what elevates a society to be functional has been decimated by political pollution. How do I mean? For example, when individuals or certain classes of people become so powerful more than state institutions, that is a signal that that country or that particular entity, that municipal entity or that country or that state is heading towards anarchy and a failing state. Now, what transpired on that day, lawyers will call it contempt in facie curia, contempt ex facie curia, contempt in the presence of the court, and contempt outside the presence of the court. It is within the premises of the court, but not in the presence of the sitting presiding officer, the sitting judge, Oyebo. And again, it is a slap on the judiciary to the extent that two agencies of government were at loggerheads as to who keeps or who is to obey, or how the order of court that was made less than 10 minutes ago should be obeyed. For crying out loud, the former central bank governor has been with the DSS, which has no relationship with prosecuting for the kind of laughable charges that they, drafted and read out that day, and proof of evidence and all the things that they concocted. It doesn't justify the timing that they spent with him. They've been with him for close to 1 month now, or thereabout, or even more than 1 month.
They couldn't find out anything.
He couldn't get anything tangible, and you want to keep him again. Why? So I want to, x-ray some of the kind of reasons which are unknown to Nigerians why such things happen. Because I also have mentioned the fact that individuals or individual groups, we can call cabals or entities, have usurped power to an extent that they have enriched themselves to an extent that they can say and determine what happens against state institutions. For example, we interface during litigations, we interface with some of these officers in court, in different courts. What happened that day is a mirror image of what happens everywhere in Nigeria. Yes, I say everywhere. It is because this is a high-profile citizen in the person of the former CBN governor. Otherwise, it happens to one Emeka somewhere.
So it's something that is concurrent.
Because the camera captured it, because it is a high-profile state. Yeah, someone that has been a functionary in government as powerful.
So I want to ask, so how come we have gotten to this level that the judiciary, which you stated, can also be independent? You understand? Yes, there are three arms of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. And these are three, I will say, three entities that are supposed to work together one way or the other. But then it seems like what you are saying, some are in one particular entity that is so large, and they are able to control the other entity one way or the other. Because what we are saying now, it's surprising that, okay, it happens to one Emeka one place or one Tunji some place, but because this is a high profile case, everybody is seeing it and everybody is talking about it. So if it has been happening, that means that nothing has been done about it, and it is a recurrent issue. So why did we get here?
Of course, it's a recurrent issue, and it's also endemic, in the sense that when a high profile person gets into custody, he would want, liberty is priceless. He would, oftentimes people in that class hardly get exposed to or experience such limitations to their liberty. You agree with me? So people of that class, they don't see what the common man sees. So they will need some comfort. For example, they will need access to their phones. They will need in some facilities, let me use the correctional facilities, the prisons. There are air-conditioned prisons, there are places for fun, there are places that you don't have access to ventilation, they are not well ventilated. So the first thing is this: when a high-profile person has this kind of case, the entities involved get happy. Yes, their season has come. For example, the head of, you can ask yourself why the head, the equivalent of an assistant commissioner of police or a CP in a state in charge of prisons had to leave whatever he's doing to be in the court that day. It's just to show himself that I'm positioning myself so that, I can curry favor from the former CBN governor, so that he will see me as, the one giving him preference, that when he is let off the hook of the court to the correctional facilities, first of all, they would have come from Ikoyi prisons that morning, not with Black Maria, but probably with, maybe you might see a Hilux. And most of these modern Hilux are air-conditioned. So we don't find that when maybe one Coyote or one Ibari or one Neka is being charged. You know, they don't use Hilux to carry them. You know, so that is one favor. Starting from there, when they get into the correctional facilities, then the preferences, like I told you, you know, to make things comfortable for Oga. Okay, so they want to, you know, do some of those things that they don't get themselves involved when it is about those low class or low class citizens. And it negates the principle of the separation of power and the principle of rule of law, where it says that there is a supremacy of the law. And there is this above and below theory also. Above in the sense that nobody is above the law, but again, nobody is below to an extent that the law cannot protect that person. So there must be a balance. In Nigeria, you find a situation where the law is availed for some kind of people, and then the law is not too long enough to catch, you know, protection to some citizens, and they're on their own. So that is why what happens in the police, that is what happens in the prisons, that is what happens in some of these places. I can tell you, so anybody can challenge me. We are national TV. But that is what happens.
Still on that scenario, because yes, Emefiele was granted bail on some conditions, and it was said that the court ordered that if he was able to meet or perfect his bail conditions, then he is free. If not, he should be remanded in the correctional center, which brought the tussle between the DSS and the Nigeria Correctional Services. And this, many Nigerians are of the opinion that this is just like you said, a big slap, like a disobedience to the court of law and all that. But I used to think, is there no law, like, is there no rules, I don't know, that backs up inter-security agency relationship, like how they treat themselves? Because it was so kind of, I was there live, it was so kind of embarrassing, like two organs of government fighting each other. I used to think there is this law that binds them to treat one another in a certain way. Or
there is no document now that you can find a law. There is no law in Nigeria where you can find in your quotes, like say police, you should treat DSS this way. There is no law like that. But there are laws establishing those entities, the DSS, the Nigerian police. There's the police act.
They are not connected in any way.
Of course, functionally, there should be coordination. But in answer to our questions, he's asking if they're okay, you can find a pamphlet or a booklet where there is law establishing, you know. No, those things are street languages. No, now. Nobody is above the law. That is just the thing. No, that is supremacy. There's no law anywhere you see there is written. Police know the catch police and all those things. So those things are street languages. But the fact is this. I have explained it to you. Because of individually, personally, what they feel they can get. That is when you have this kind of stuff. And again, because we have seemingly a government that is headed by entities that feel entitled, or that felt that the CBN governor, as he then was, when he was in office, was instrumental to the exchange of the Naira and stuff, trying to bring in measures. You know, there was an accusation cried out by one of the candidates during the election that the redesign of the Naira was targeted at
Yes.
a particular entity.
Yes.
And you all can use your tongue to count your teeth as to what is happening. Probably there is a vengeance or revenge mission going on. We don't know. You know, those things are speculations here and there. But you cannot find explanation elsewhere except in those speculations that maybe ask yourself, what would they want from Emefiele that they haven't gotten from him? There is a joke that is flying around social media when the goats, the animals were running, and then they ran across and they found the tortoise. They said, the tortoise asked the elephant, why are you running? Cheetah, why are you running? You know, tiger and the rest of them, why are you running? They say, I better run. No. If you know who is pursuing us, then you run faster. I said, who is pursuing you? It is the Nigerian police. So why are you running? Ha. The elephant said it will take donkey years for you to prove in a Nigerian court under Nigerian police to prove that you are not who they are looking for before you wriggle yourself out. So the best is to do what? To run. Now, what that means is this. In Nigeria, you are accused when the law says in chapter 4 of our constitution that you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. But here, in Nigeria, they will do an arrest without investigation. It is after the arrest that they will commence investigation. And true to it, immediately after that incident at the Ikoyi Federal High Court, the DSS went to another court in Abuja to obtain an order of court to detain the former CBN governor for extra 14 days. So my question is, why wouldn't the Nigerian Bar Association or judiciary punish lawyers that handle such cases? Sanction them, strict sanctions. Because some of these things we experience in Nigeria, they fester because there are no consequences. It is the scarcity of consequences that make impunity to keep on thriving. That is the answer to your question.
That's exactly what I was saying, that in such scenario now, who is to intervene? Like, there should be penalty. I don't know to who, I don't know who to intervene, but with such acts, I'm feeling if it's an ordinary, if in a layman's sense, in a layman thinking, there should be penalty for...
Yes. The lawyers involved should apply to court at least. The least they can do is to file for contempt. You know, because it is contemptuous that the written order of court, even before it was written, it was fresh in our memory that less than 10 minutes ago, the judge said that the accused be remanded in correctional facility. And of course, if you've ever been to court, you know that no court rises without pegging a date for adjournment, agreeable to both parties. So there must be a return date. And again, you asked whether it depends on how fast, but no matter how fast, sometimes at least the accused person or the defendant would have spent 1 or 2 days at the correctional facilities. You know why? The process of, getting bail requires the examination of shorty papers. When it has to do with property, the visitation, you must make some visitations and make assessments, and then other stuff. You know, the defense lawyers also requested that he be granted bail on personal recognizance. I think it is also justifiable, very fair if he is given that privilege. But in the wisdom of the court also, they gave the bail conditions on the most liberal terms, I must say. So the next thing was for the lawyers to perfect the bail or get into the process of perfecting the bail and then hand over. The DSS would have just handed over the defendant when they don't even need to do that. Your stuff is just to bring him to court and then take your leave outside the court premises, or maybe hang around until the pronouncement from the presiding judge. Upon hearing that pronouncement, they ought to have taken their leave. But what do we have? Pestering to the extent of fighting, shouting, and all those. It's a disgrace to the society. It's a disgrace and a desecration of the temple of justice. Heads should roll. There should be a query by DSS. There should be a query by the correctional facilities, the minister for whoever is in charge of internal affairs, and the entities. There should be queries across board. But most importantly, the lawyer should file for contempt, because it is a violation of the temple of justice, where every man hopes that it is the last hope of the common man.
Now, I want to ask, this has happened, the incident has happened, and like you said, the DSS had to go to Abuja to actually fight for a stay, 14-day stay will I call it now, to keep Emefiele
To
with
keep
them
keeping him.
here now? To
Constitution
keep keeping him
says within
for,
24 hours,
you
48
now,
hours.
what
distance and
exactly will happen? How should the law react to all this? Because I see that we just have one judicial system. We don't have other entities of, say, this court from this particular can actually override this other court, or that court can override this, but it is just one. It's just one entity. So what should happen? What will happen?
I've already answered you. They file a contempt, and that is what should happen.
Is it now?
Because if you understand the courts, you don't see the court functioning like one officer coming out from his office, like we used to have a headmaster or a principal with his cane across this way, and then moving around the school compound. Anybody he sees, he flogs or punishes. Do you envisage a judicial system like that? The answer is no. The judge presides, and there are processes. Superior courts in Nigeria are courts of record, and which must be approached through the rules of court. And the rules of court contains how filings should be done. You file by an application, file by motion or writ, and all those. And then there must be endorsements by a legal practitioner who should do the filing and all those. So it is not like I told you, a headmaster will come and begin to say, hey, DSS, come here, lie down, 24 lashes, and all those. That is not how the law functions. What I mean by that, again, is that the judicial system functions when it's activated through the rules of court. And then the court will now be seized with jurisdiction to act over it. And it is the content of what is filed before it that it treats. For example, the contempt, infrastructure, and also, the institution of or commencement of disciplinary actions. The Nigerian Bar Association has even also given a statement condemning what happened, but it was lacking in holding people responsible. That court order that was filed in application that was filed in Abuja was moved by somebody, was moved from a chamber, and was there are endorsements on the motion papers as to the seal of the lawyer that did it. So why not we grow to an extent that we follow things through instead of following things haphazard. The lead counsel to the former governor, who happens to also be our former NBA president, he spoke on national TV, standing within the premises of court, mentioned that this judge, this, that, blah, 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 without mentioning names. So sometimes we play to the gallery as though we don't know how to draw the lines to the sticking place.
Yeah, but these people are lawyers, and playing to the gallery somehow when it comes to a case means you are actually shooting yourself in the leg or in the foot, whatever the case may be. You are actually fighting a case, but then you are not mentioning names of corporates, people who are actually involved in the case. And at the end of the day, it's supposed to be your testimony, against whoever has done something wrong against that particular judgment, to say, okay, these are the people who are involved in that, and they should be the ones prosecuted. And if you are not doing that, then the case could be reversed against you.
No, not really. If there are no such things like ombudsman or public complaints commission and stuff that protects citizens' rights, what you call also whistleblowers, then there's no incentive for whistleblowing. Whistleblowing is not necessarily all about, making public a corrupt or financial crime. It's also about an infraction of our laws. And added to that, there are institutions. For example, in our MBA, there is a Nigerian Bar Association disciplinary committee. As much as you have the Nigerian Bar Association privileges committee. So these are entities that do the checks and balances, like you have in the NJC, the National Judicial Council, and the State Judicial Service Commissions. You have in-house mechanisms, how judges are disciplined. You also have in-house with how our legal practitioners are disciplined, because we even have an act of parliament regarding our profession, the Legal Practitioners Act. And when there are violations in some of all this legal contents of Legal Representation Act, the law should take its course.
So now, wait, I wanted to ask, sorry, before you go on now, what's the trouble now? The law gave an order that this person be remanded in a correctional center. Meanwhile, the DSS is, this person has been with us. So what should have happened? Because it doesn't mean that the DSS needed a particular document to say, okay, we're handing over this person to these people, and so we're no more involved in it. Or there's what is it?
It is what she asked, the question she asked earlier. Before they leave the presence of their office to bring a defendant to court, they would have had their paperwork. In fact, first of all, they would have filed the charges before the court a day before. And the court would have given them that particular date as the date for arraignment. And on the date for arraignment, few things happen in court. Just the subject, you go straight to what arraignment means is that an accused person stands in the dock and the charges are read in an open court. And all those things are in conformity with the AJCL. So now when the charges are read, definitely the law says that he must have a representative, a counsel to represent him, have that as a right. Upon taking a plea, whether guilty or not guilty, of course you watched it, he pleaded not guilty. The next thing is for the defense counsel on his behalf to stand up and then act for bail if it's a bailable offense. And if there are any objections, the lawyer on the opposite side would also, object. And the court, in its discretion, will now give a ruling. And that ruling must contain the bail conditions. And that was actually what happened. And that case closes. At that point, the prison authorities, knowing that, because that is the synergy between all of them. When a counsel, when a defendant is taken to court, when an accused person is taken to court, the presence of the correctional facilities, you don't need to ring a bell. You don't need to do anything it activates, it's self-functioning, that they know that they should be in court. So they know that being there could mean that we'll take him in custody, because it is a tradition for the court to rule that either the person be remanded in prison custody or remanded within the correctional facilities or the facilities or the people that brought them to court. But in this case, they are there. It is not wrong that they are there. But in coming to court, they would also have prepared their papers too, the remand documents, which the court authorities, the registrar and the rest of them will sign and execute. It is in the process of doing all this that DSS show themselves that they are acting in contempt, because in actual fact, the ruling of the court is very clear that he be remanded in prison custody.
Please, I want to ask them, that tussle that happened, that scenario, is it capable of causing some sort of injury to the judiciary? Or
it has already caused now.
What's the implication on our democracy?
Yes, the implication on our judiciary and the implication on our democracy. There are heavy consequences. The implications are, one, that our institutions are failing. Our institutions are being manned by people who are incompetent. Our institutions are being run with disdain and contemptuous and with impunity. And our institutions don't have synergy, like you already pointed out, that they seem to be working at cross purposes. It is no longer working for the country Nigeria. They are working as to the presumptions I told you, because of trying to curry favor from a high-profile person. There are plenty of them. I remember when Mena was in prison, and when all these Mustafa, them and the rest of them. These are things we see every day. There are differences when some class of people are within that custody, and there are differences when it is the ordinary men. I notice it. They always give those kind of preferences, Now, another implication to our democracy is that, hey, we have the biggest masquerade, which is the expectation that the presidential election petition court would give their judgment in less than 60 days' time right now. you see, it casts a gloomy weather on the attitude of the judiciary or attitude of politicians, assuming the rulings of the court does not go in their favor. And it also casts doubts as to the capacity of the coercive elements of state. What are those coercive elements? They are domiciled, some within the presidency and some within the Ministry of Justice. They are the Nigerian Army, for external protect Nigeria against external aggression. Then there's Nigerian Police, protecting Nigeria, protecting peace and enforcing law within the country. And you know, you have other paramilitary organizations. You have the civil defense also. Now, assuming there is a ruling that is more sensitive than the person of Mr. Emefiele, what will happen? So the international committees are watching.
I wanted to ask that question, but we don't have time. You know, I wanted to ask that question. We don't have time again. That's the much we can take on this interview segment now. We go for a very short break. Let me take my guests again. Thank you so much for coming. Yes, it is great speaking with you on this. We hope Nigeria changes for the better, and our judicial system, or the three arms of government, follows the laws of the land. Exactly. You know, constituted laws of the land to do the right thing. So thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
And that's the much we can take on the interview segment at this time. The Daybreak Africa continues shortly.